This is problem 21 off linear application sheet number 2. In this problem, you go to a restaurant with a $20 bill. You know you have to pay a 9% sales tax, and you'd like to leave a 15% tip. I want you to calculate what the most expensive meal is that you can eat. Now, in this case, let's assume that my student here, Luann, does not understand what to do, and she needs to get her thoughts organized. To do that, I would like her to make a chart, which is always what I think your first step should be, unless, of course, it's something where you can draw a picture that makes more sense to you. But in this case, what is the subject of our story problem here, Luann?
The meal.
And again, I want you to put everything in your chart that you either want to know, your unknown, or the things that you already know. And in this case, what are those things, Luann?
Well, I don't know the price of the meal.
So that's the first thing you, of course, start with in this case. The first thing you would do in this problem, obviously, is order the meal. Now, my price is how much in this case?
I don't know.
So we're just going to label that X in this case because it's our unknown. What else do we know?
I know I have to pay 9% tax.
So we have a tax of 9% that we have to pay.
And I have a tip, 15%.
And a tip of 15% that we'd like to leave. And finally, the last piece of information that you have
would be the total, and that'd be the $20 that I have.
Okay. Now, let's assume in this case that you still don't know what to do. What I want you to do to help yourself figure it out is just make up a number for X. Let's start with that and figure out what the price would be for that meal, and then basically imitate that same pattern and do the algebra. So in this case, what number would you like to make up for X?
10.
$10 is an excellent choice. It's a nice round number. In fact, it's the number I would have picked myself. Let's go ahead and start with that $10 meal. And what would we do next?
We have to figure out the tax.
And how much would the tax be?
That would be 90 cents.
And the 90 cents is calculated by doing what?
The $10 times the 0.09.
Correct. And the next thing?
Would be the tip, and that would be $1.50.
And how'd you calculate the $1.50?
That's $10 times 0.15.
Yes, and you'll notice, and Luann pointed out in this case, that we're using the decimal version. Even though she said 9%, I of course wrote the decimal version of 0.09, and 15% I of course wrote the decimal version of 0.15. So I've got the price of the meal, plus the tax, plus the tip, and in this case, how much would that work out to be?
$20.
Well, that's of course how much I have to spend, but for the case you chose here, a $10 meal and a 90-cent tip and a 9% sales tax and a $1.50 in tip would be $12.40. Now, let's do exactly the same thing, but this time we're going to do the algebra. For example, was this 10 a real number or something you made up?
It was a made-up number.
And it was taking the place of?
The
X. So we start with X. And once again, my 10 was a made-up number. How about the 0.09?
0.09 is right.
So I have to take my 0.09 times X.
10, yeah, the X.
And then, instead of 10 times 0.15, because you made up the 10, we'll take the 0.15 times
X.
And of course, what should this work out to be for the total?
$20.
The $12.40 was just a pretend number when you made up the 10. The actual total in this case is supposed to be $20. So in this case, we have 1x plus 0.09x plus 0.15x leaves me with 1.24x. And that needs to equal $20. Now to solve this equation, what will I do to both sides?
You will divide both by 1.24.
Doing that will, of course, eliminate my coefficient. Doing the arithmetic, I have on the right side 20 divided by 1.24 leaves me with a dollar amount of $16.13.